So we are wondering about a December meeting. And if you want to, if you could not make a December meeting just before the holidays, let us know. Otherwise, we'll think about that. And then another thing that we'd love it if you did is give us suggestions for what you want to do at our next gathering. What do you want to hear about? Would you like to do, I thought a show and tell might be fun. So we can certainly do that. Okay. So I am going to be sharing my screen, and our presenters today, Lori and Laurel, will also share their screens, and we'll hear from Claire as well. And I want to thank, let me see if I can do this.
Your stove down wide open.
Okay, is anybody?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, you see that?
Yep.
And we're going to go to slideshow. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the title of our discussion today is Tapestry Design, Sharing Personal Practice. And back in the summer, we thought it would be interesting to hear how various weavers amongst us approached designing, especially for tapestry. And Lori Alexander and Laurel Herbeck have art practices from other areas of their life or other media that we wanted to see how those practices informed their tapestry design. And Jasmine Johnson Kennedy and Claire Spann will also, they also were willing to share some of their work, and we'll hear from them towards the end of our presentation. But I want to really thank Lori and Laurel for stepping up, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. So I just have a few slides that I will go through just to get us started. And I am having trouble seeing the whole slide there. Okay, so in tapestry, you create the figure and the ground, or the image in the background at the same time. This is different from something like painting. In painting or in drawing, you already have your background done for you. That's the surface upon which you paint or draw. So tapestry is a little bit of a different beast here. And we often get stuck with what makes a potential design for tapestry weavable. You've heard Bonnie say what makes something weavable, or what is that weaverly? Are you looking at it with loomish eyes? How do we decide if that thing in our minds needs to come out and be woven in tapestry? So our question was, how have our fellow Alaska tapestry weavers translated design skills from their other art practices into tapestry design? And where can one find design ideas? Sylvia Hayden said, or I'll paraphrase her, she said, allow the craft of the weaving to influence the art of tapestry. And I highly suggest that you go and look at some of her work. What she is doing in tapestry cannot be done in any other medium. Tommy Scanlon said, tapestry images are part and parcel of the making process. And this is another Sylvia Hayden piece. Joan Baxter asked, what is the native language of tapestry? And she is quite sure that tapestry has its own native language, meaning that there are things you can do in tapestry that you can't do with any other medium. And here are some of Joan's work. Joan Baxter is very fluent in the language of tapestry. This is one of my favorite tapestries of all time. It's amazing. Fiona Hutchinson also does incredible work, and she does things that can only be achieved using tapestry techniques. Rebecca Mezoff is someone who is very accessible to non-artists and artists alike. And she recommends to find an example of someone else's weaving that expresses what you want to picture or what you want to weave. And then you practice those techniques that the person that you're referencing uses. She says, never think that you have to follow any particular rules when it comes to making art. Of course, you want to have the techniques down so that you do get a stable tapestry. But other than that, once you know the rules, they're free. You are free to break them. She also suggests you recognize what you love. Think about what you want to express, and then experiment your heart out and do it. And she also says that, you know, copying a portion of someone else's work to learn a particular technique so that you can then go and incorporate that into your own work is okay. Just don't pass that off as your own work. And my thing that I would like to say is sample, sample, sample. You can set up a smaller companion loom that is devoted to only samples. A nice little pipe loom might fit the bill for that. Or you can actually devote a portion of your warp on your working loom for weaverly experiments. So you could have your big tapestry that you're working on side by side with a narrower warp used for experimentation. And just practice new techniques. Just get on your loom and practice with no real end in mind. Just set aside even an hour a week to play is very beneficial. So sample, practice, and play. And you don't have to show anybody. You can throw it in a box like all mine are, but you have learned something when you do that. So from there, I will turn it over to Lori. And once I figure out how to end this.
Okay. Are we ready? Am I on there?
I'll stop share. There's what I need to do. Okay, Lori.
Okay. Hello and welcome. I don't really.
That's mine.
Oh, there we are. Lori Alexander, that's me. I don't see myself though. I see Laurel.
You may have to scroll down.
Oh, okay, there I am.
You got it?
So my name is Lori Alexander, and I want to begin by telling you guys a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Southern Oregon. I've lived in Alaska since 2005. Am I coming across okay, everyone? I see kind of puzzled looks on people's faces. So I've been doing art since I was about 9 years old. Drawing, painting. I love doing graphic arts. And when I was in college, I started, got interested in working with clay. So I've been working on the potter's wheel for over 20 years. So here's a example of some of the cups I made just this summer. And you can go to the next slide. And this slide is just of something, it's a tray, and it's kind of a representation of this summer's work, I've been working with color. And if I could only do that weaving a tapestry that looks like that, that would be great. So that might be something I aspire to do someday. Yeah, go back to the tray still. So when we moved to Fairbanks about 10 years ago, I realized with the extreme cold of the winters, there was absolutely no way that I could do pottery year round. The studio that I work in is at my house. It's in a shop, and the shop is separate from the house, and it's really hard to heat. So if you know anything about clay, if it freezes or the forms that you make freeze, they crack. So with the way the weather is in Fairbanks, about now, I stopped doing clay and I'll start back up usually in May. So I had all these winter months. What am I going to do with them? And I took a weaving class in college and I really enjoyed it. And last February, I just happened to be looking at the folk school schedule. And what do you know, there was a beginning tapestry class. I signed up. I was fortunate enough to be one of the people that got in, and I learned the basics of tapestry. So after we learned some of the beginning tapestry things, we were asked to create a cartoon and start weaving our first tapestry. So we can go to the next slide now. So this was the cartoon I came up with. It's a basic sunflower, or it could be. I put a bunch of lines in the middle of the sunflower, and there was a leaf, a stem. I was doing tapestry on a small student loom. And of course, you know, I had never done a tapestry before in my life. When I started numbering, like I'm going to do this first, then this, I was like, what am I even thinking? I don't even know what I'm doing. This is way too elaborate. So one of the things that I do in pottery, when I'm doing any kind of design on a pot, I have learned to keep it very, very simple. And we can go to the next slide. So the design on this pot is just a basic flower shape and some leaves. I've learned the simpler is the better. They usually turn out a lot better, and we can go to the next slide. So these are a little bit more elaborate, but they're still very simple. I do a lot of flower forms. I do some dragonflies too. And we can go to the next slide. So what I did is I redrew my cartoon. As you can see, it's now just a basic flower shape with a stem that I did move a couple of times, because once you start looking at negative space, you realize it has to be in a certain position. So believe it or not, I was fortunate enough, I never dreamed I would be talking to any kind of tapestry people or weavers, but I took pictures of that very first tapestry as I was making it. So we can go to the next slide. So this is when I first started weaving the tapestry. I put some hatching in the petals of the flowers. I really didn't know what I was doing, but it looked good. So I went ahead and did it to add a little bit of shading. And I knew from all the art classes I've taken and done that some of the color, you know, yellow and purple contrasting colors, they look good together. So we can go to the next slide. So this is the flower form completed with the background, the stem. I still had the middle to do. And before we go to the next slide, I want to point out the stem. I was never happy with the stem, and I'll come to that later. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So I decided to do pick and pick for the middle of the flower, and I used a dark orange and a red, and you can't really see it there, but kind of in that middle section, you can kind of see the pick and pick in there. If we go to the next one, it might show it a little bit better. Yeah, so there's the finished tapestry. I did put some purple in the middle, and you can kind of see the lines in the center of the flower of the pick and pick. But for my first tapestry, I thought that turned out really good. I wish my other ones had turned out that well. I was very, very pleased with it. I think that, you know, you can take a simple form like a flower and weave it as elaborate as you want. And that was one of the things that with pottery and weaving's kind of the same. Keep the form simple for me. Okay, so after we finished this tapestry, we were done with the class. I had to turn in my little student loom, which I was pretty attached to. I then bought a big sister loom from Merrick's. I think that's how you say it. So we can go to the next slide. So this is my second tapestry. When I am working on something in pottery, if I'm just starting to throw a certain kind of shape, I will throw that shape over and over and over again. Same with putting any kind of design on the pots. I'll do a bunch of them. And then I'll fire them and I'll see what works out in that first bunch of pots. The handle's good. What's the glaze saying to me? And then I'll take those elements of what is working the best and I'll use it when I make the same form again. And that's what I have done here with the tapestry. So I liked the flower forms and I wanted to continue working with those, try some different colors and pick and pick. And then the top flower, I was trying some hatching and I kept the hatching in the yellow form or the yellow petals because I really thought that worked. I didn't like the stem, so I wanted to work on that. And I added some leaves. So I added a few things to this tapestry because I was working on a different, bigger space. When I bought my new loom, it was quite a bit bigger than the student loom. So that's why I added another flower and I added some leaves. Basically, I'm now on my third tapestry. We can go to the next slide. And I'm doing the same form again because that's what I do in pottery. That's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm doing now. I don't know if that would work for everyone because I can even find myself getting a little bored with the same shapes, but it is a way of, taking those things I think that are working and working on the ones that I don't think are working. So in this one, you can see I put the leaf in the foreground. So it's right up front and the flower is supposed to be kind of in the background. We can go to the next slide. That picture kind of looks weird, but go to the next one because I think I took it at an angle and it kind of shows a little bit more. Okay, there we go. So the leaf is really working because the inside of it, the lighter color green, is a little thicker yarn than the green around it. And it really pops. It really looks like it has dimension, which for me is just great. There's other things that, aren't working so well. It's been a long summer and this is my first one coming back into it. But basically what I wanted to say as far as like coming up with designs and stuff, I think for myself, keeping my designs very simple, and I think that's a good thing to do when you're just starting out, has worked for me. and just keeping the things that are working really good and working on the stuff that isn't working has been working for me. So another thing I wanted to add right before I leave, so it's the next slide. I have recently purchased The Art of Tapestry Weaving, and I have to say it is a really great book. If you don't have it, I fully recommend getting it. Just so you know, I also work at the library, but you can check it out at the public library. Fairbanks Library does not have it, but you can put it on hold, and one of the libraries in Alaska will send it to you if you haven't bought it and you're not sure you want to purchase it, although it's completely worth the price. I mean, it has everything in it. It's a great book, and I've only had it maybe 6 weeks and I've already learned a lot. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you.
That was fabulous, Lori. So much good information there. Let's go to Laurel, and we will have just save your questions for Lori and Laurel, and we will get to them. But Laurel?
And as we're going to jump into Laurel, I just want to remind everybody who joined us late, if you, for every time you pop into the chat with a question or a comment, you get an entry in today's prize drawing, which is for some really wonderful Weaverly stuff.
Do we want to start with your slideshow first, Laurel?
I'm pulling that up. It'll be just a second.
Kind of switch back and forth between this screen on my desktop and the slideshow. So once I get started, I don't need to be on speaker view. Anyway, I'm Laurel Herbeck. I've been weaving for about 40 years, and I've been interested in art and making things since I can remember. And I'm more of a fabric weaver. I also have done quite a bit of watercolor, and I'm also a book artist. I really like making handmade books. But today I wanted to just talk generally about inspiration and the creative process, which is something that I have taught a lot with high school students, and also did a presentation on this for the Book Arts Guild several years ago, before we did our first Books as Art show. And I just want to give a plug. We have Books as Art 3 coming up in November at the Bear Gallery, and it's going to be a very exciting show. We've been working on it for 2 years. So anyway, yeah, let's start with some slides then.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. Hang on.
That's okay. I'll get through most of the information first, and then we'll just look at some of the books and design things that I have. Okay, so the Greeks had goddesses that they called the muses, that they felt inspired all creativity, whether it was artistic or scientific. And your muse doesn't have to be a goddess. Your muse could be nature or teachers. I've had many fabulous weaving teachers and art teachers and workshops that have inspired a lot of my work. It could be poetry or prose, something that you've read. It could be the materials themselves. It might be the yarn or the loom. It's just anything that you are manipulating. And then the techniques also can be very inspirational. I mentioned earlier that I'd been doing crockbrog and was very inspired with playing with color in crockbrog. Okay, next one. So these are the stages of creativity. And the first one is preparation. Picasso said inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. So if you keep working at a craft or working at an art form, you are preparing yourself to be ready for ideas to come. And the next one is incubation or intuition. And this is when you have sort of a kernel of an idea, but it has not really come to fruition yet. And I find that if I'm thinking about something, sometimes I'll just sketch out a few ideas and then put it on the back burner for a while. And then maybe a month later, you'll have that illumination, that sort of aha moment where you really know what it is you want to do. And then there is creation. The creation requires persistence and eventually leads to success. Ray Perotti, who is a wonderful painter, does a lot of very spiritual work in series. And he said, learning is a journey, not a destination, but a journey without a destination is wandering. And I really liked that one. And Rollo May, who also did a lot of writing about creativity, said the first thing we notice in a creative act is it is an encounter. And so I like to think of an encounter with nature, an encounter with maybe a color scheme, an encounter with a new material. But if you think of the creative act itself as an encounter, it's very affirming and not as scary. Okay, so let's go on to, there's an example. I took an advanced weaving class many years ago with Lisa Popovic, and she had us do a final project that had to be kind of a culmination type thing. We were doing painted warps and dyeing and this and that. And so I did a 3-panel series of the summer and winter weavings. And there's one behind me on the door. I think you might be able to see it. They're about, I would say 30 by 48 or something. And there are 3 of them. And I kind of wanted to do something with the seasons. So this one is fall. It's got some fall. No, is this fall? I can't remember. I'm missing one of them somewhere. But anyhow, they were different seasons. I dyed the warps, and then I also dyed the wefts, which is why you see these kind of lines of striation going across. Okay, next. So designing as practice. I like to think of things, when I first started yoga, I thought of it as a class that I went to every week. And finally I took, as our instructor was going to start to retire, she taught a class called starting your own home practice. And that's when I really started to think about yoga as a practice and weaving as a practice. So a couple of more quotes here. Design is the conscious and intuitive effort to impose meaningful order. And I'll be showing some examples of design books and design ideas a little bit towards the end. But creativity requires the willingness and ability to declassify and restructure information and experience. And that's kind of a postmodern attitude of, breaking things down, deconstructing and reconstructing. But in this case, it's with knowledge or materials or experience. And then Aristotle said to be a master of metaphor is a sign of genius, because a good metaphor implies an intuitive perception of the similarity between dissimilar things. And this to me is kind of a good segue. Oh, here's one of the other ones of that one. This is the winter with the northern lights and the sun very low on the horizon. So, okay, so kinetic techniques. On my desktop, which I think you can see in a small window, is this book by Nicholas Roque. And synetics comes from the Greek word synektikos, which means to bring something forth together, or bringing different things into a unified connection. And he gives a lot of different examples and exercises in the book of, how you can do this. So each chapter has a different synectic trigger or a way of combining things. So either by subtraction, combination, transfer. I won't read them all, but some of the ones that I think that we use in the visual arts are things like symbolizing and mythologizing and hybridizing. You see a lot of superimposing and metamorphosing in computer art particularly, but changing scale, which is kind of what Lori was talking about in the tapestry, simplifying it down. Those are all trigger mechanisms that you can use to begin designing. And design is a whole nother field, which I realized when I started having to teach a design class in the high school, is that you can go with tons of topics. Okay, so the thinking cycle here basically is referring to some ideas, two things maybe, reflecting on them, thinking about how you can join them and reconstruct them. Okay, so this is a tapestry that, I have a rather broad view of tapestry. I've done a lot of work with Theo Mormon, where you're doing tapestry on a woven background, and transparency, where again, you have a woven structure of fine yarns that are holding the whole thing together. And then the part that you read as the image or the trees is basically tapestry weaving. In this case, it was white on white, and it looks darker because it's being illuminated from behind. This one hangs in my front window, and it's been there about 20 years, I think. I'm surprised that the linen survived. But okay, here's a detail. So you can see the woven structure there. It's very fine linen. This is the structure that was on the loom that Bonnie got. Still had this warp on there. So I was planning on doing 4 or 5 of them. So you see how that went. So I love to read about how other people create. Albert Einstein always said that he saw something first and then did the math. He pictured it or dreamed it or imagined it. And so I take this quote. He said, "I imagine myself as a rider of a beam of light." And I take that as a metaphor for illumination. You're riding a beam of light. I just love that, the words and the metaphor. And this is another concept. This Ralph Kaplan quote is a concept that whenever you're teaching, you really have to understand that all art and most knowledge entails seeing connections or making them. Until it's hooked up with what you already know, nothing can ever be learned or assimilated. So learn to really trust what you already know. Max Ernst, who was another fantastic artist, said, "Creativity is the marvelous capacity to grasp mutually distinct realities and draw a spark from their juxtaposition." So juxtaposition is another one of those that I love. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few sources here. As I say, I already mentioned, maybe you want to just spotlight my desktop right now, Bonnie, and then we'll go back to the slideshow.
Let's see.
Can you just pin it?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, you wanted your desktop pinned. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your desktop. There we go. There we go.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing it, but let me go to speaker.
Yeah, I actually see it perfectly, Laurel. You're good.
Yeah, I do now.
Okay.
A little blurry, but maybe it's just too close to my computer. It could be my eyes. So this is the design synetics book that I was telling you about. And he goes through all different kinds of exercises, mostly for graphic arts. But a lot of them, can be things that you could use for other art forms. This is a little book that I just dearly love. It is called Design Language, and it's by Tim McCreight. And he has 2 editions. One is like a little dictionary. And then the other one is this one, which is an interpretive edition. So he'll talk about, for example, aesthetics, and give you a textbook or dictionary definition of it, what it is, and then he'll show you examples. And he does that for every design term that we use in art, like closure, for example, or contour. I like the way that he uses all kinds of different media as examples for design concepts. And I think it just makes it a lot more clear for me to use a source like that one. The other one, this is a really old book. I'm not sure if we have this in our library or not. It's Johannes Itten. He worked at the Bauhaus with Joseph and Annie Albers, and he taught painting and design. And so this little book has, it starts out pretty basic with color and value. And he goes into many different design concepts that can be woven, painted, printed, whatever, but it really is the basic Bauhaus design type introduction, which was very, very influential in mid-century America, because the Albers and Itten came over to America from Germany because of the Nazis. And they came in the 30s, but were teaching in the 40s and 50s. This one is a simple little book. I don't recommend spending the money because I only really liked about 4 pages of it, but the pages I liked are very stunning. So she works an awful lot like I do, of choosing a yarn, picking a photo or some image for inspiration, picking out materials that you're going to use, and then weaving it. So I'm just going to show you about 3 of these. Here's the green leaves. These are her yarn. And then this is her weaving. It's all plain weave.
We only see Laurel's face.
Not what?
We only see your face, Laurel. We don't. Oh, there's the
Oh,
book.
I'm so sorry. Wait, what happened? Maybe I have to change it.
Now I see
I
it.
see it now.
I see it
I
now.
I see
So
it now.
Laurel, I'm sorry, I pinned you instead of spotlighting you, so nobody saw it, and I just fixed it.
Okay, all right. I'll just go back to this book. We don't have to go through the Itten. So she had, this is what I was telling you about her yarn, her image, and her other materials, and then her woven sample. And I have a wonderful book that was put together of the weavings of Sheila Hicks, and they were all small, not her big things that we think of as, fiber sculpture, but they were all small weavings that she did daily and very similar to this. So here's birch bark and the yarns, and then the finished little weaving. And you can see some cross hatching and techniques there. Here's another example where she's included the yarn, the threading, tie up, but it's pretty basic weaving. So, but I love her colors, and I love these 4 examples. The rest of the book is a whole bunch of graph paper, and there's some other interesting ideas about creativity. But so this one, she starts with an image of a leaf, and pulls out the colors that she likes from that leaf. And I believe this might be the last one. So she's starting with a photo of something and then using those colors, which I think got a little muddy. I would not mix those colors, but okay. But that, if you happen to see it at the library or something and feel like picking it up, as I say, there's not a lot to it that you probably don't already know.
Laurel, could you go back to and just look at the book before the Itten book? That had a lot of really just rich visual reference that I saw and nobody else got to.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it starts out with a lot about value and using different values in different works of art. This one, well, here's a weaving. And it's an analysis of painting by Goya. So what he'll do is take a painting and break it down, like pixelate it, which quite a few complex weavers are trying to do now with their work. He starts going into color and the color wheel, designing with color, basic shape. They use a lot of collage. This one is just cut straws. I love it. You know, it's just, I love reading design books because you can just get so many interesting ideas of things to do and make. So here's one that has a few weavings. This one is woven by Gerda Stoltz, who was one of the master weavers with Annie Albers at the Bauhaus School. And then other designs. So it's very interesting. I mean, if you want just a really good basic design theory book, I don't think you can get any better than Itten and the Bauhaus. So I think that would be an inspirational way to go. One of my other favorites, if you don't have this book in your library, you really should as a weaver. Or any kind of a crafts person. But what I love about this book, and you see it on just about every page, is that she's working in a variety of media to explain the color concepts that she's talking about. And so she's got beading, weaving, knitting, felting, you name it, embroidery. And she really gives a thorough introduction to every aspect of color theory. So for instance, here's one on color mixing. And you know, how color changes, whether you're using fabric or beads or yarn or paint. So many of the color books that we find are really for painters, and they're great books. But for a weaver, I always wanted something that was a little bit more related to the cloth. And there's another really good one called Fiber and Color. And I don't know if I put that in the list, but it is, it's more for dyeing than weaving. Anyhow, I highly recommend Deb Mentz. It's available from, I believe, Internet Press. So, and then of course, this is one of my favorites. Okay. This is Tommy McClure Scanlon's book, The Nature of Things. I loved it because it's really a biography or an autobiography of her and her work and her process and how she got from being an art educator and to becoming a tapestry weaver, and what some of her inspiration has been over the years. And it's just a wonderful read. I really liked it a lot. You guys have already mentioned the other two that I was including, which is this Tapestry Design Basics and Beyond. And I have not had enough time to spend really getting into this. I'd like to do that this winter because there's so much in there. It's just everything. And then I'm just going to kind of quickly show you some of my sketchbooks. So this sketchbook, I realized to my horror, you can tell by the cover, is almost 40 years old. And starting with the very first workshop that I took with Peter Collingwood in 1986. So I spent quite a bit of time for a couple of years weaving paraments for our church. And this was Theo Morin technique, which, as I said, is kind of tapestry on top of cloth. So this was the blue one for Advent. And I wanted to do something with a gold star, and I wanted some blue stripes in the background. So that's all in the cloth, but the star and the other shapes are woven in tapestry fashion on top. And as I say, I think there were 7 church seasons. I did quite a few. Sharon Alderman gave a workshop, so I have my notes from that. I've pretty much got every workshop I did for about 20 years. Clotilde Barrett. Yarn samples, I like to, when I'm thinking of an idea, pull out the yarn that I think I'm going to want to use and put that in the book. A lot of classes that I take, if the instructor shows slides, I try to really quickly do a little sketch to remind me of what they were showing in their slides. This is just a little sketch that I had for a transparency that I still want to do. I still want to get back to transparency now that I'm retired, because it's about as slow as tapestry. And these were some of the sketches for the summer and winter hangings that I showed you. You know, I had to decide kind of how I wanted to paint the warp, and my weft colors had to be dyed in skeins that would fit the width of the piece. So talk about preparation. Oh my gosh. A lot of that was kind of hard to figure out. And then because of the nature of summer and winter and the nature of dyeing, you know, most of my images came out a lot more abstract than what you see in my sketches. But I tend to be really literal when I start sketching and then just get more abstract as I go. This was an idea for some scarf painted warps that I worked on for a while. And this is what I have on my AVL right now. It is a summer and winter piece with salmon on a linen background or a fine cotton background. I can't remember which. And it's very fine threads. It's going to be on there for a while. But so this was my design process, my calculations, all that stuff that you do when you're you know, designing your own warps. And I think that once somebody gets beyond a beginning class, they really need a class in weaving structure, how to read block drafts, how to design your own drafting, and that sort of thing. So this is another sketchbook that I started a few years back. And oh, hang on just a minute, somebody's calling me. Sorry about that. So in this one, this is a combination of paintings and different classes as well. This was a little course that I took that was about creativity and, you know, coming up with your ideas and inspirations. And one of the things we did was make a board game of our life. And so you can see things like, you know, when I got my Glamacra, weaving with Fran Reed, meeting Penny, and working with her, and weaving the pyramids, and raising 3 kids, and teaching art, taking art classes, and then teaching art. Anyway, I think this was 2007 when we finished the class. Okay, there's 2 more, and then I also I've been spending years redesigning my house. I designed it initially and have seen all the flaws ever since. So I like to sketch around with that. This is a project that I currently have on my baby wolf, and it is a rep weave, and it's a 6-block rep with these colors in sequence. And this is the treadling. And again, this is block drafting. It's not a straight draft, because you can't, weave 3 of the same treadlings in a row without getting huge gaps and things. And this is just some designs that I was working on, thinking positive and negative, and maybe cutting these out of book windows for a book that I was working on. But I think these 2 in particular have a lot of potential for me for transparency. So I just included those. And then the last thing, if we can get back to the slideshow, I'd like to just briefly run through this creativity meditation. And so we can get rid of my desktop. Okay, so imagination takes strength and guides its direction from what I see and hear and learn and feel and remember of my living world. That's from the author Eudora Welty. So let's go on to the next one. All right, this is a little hard to read, but basically, this is from a book called The Creative Spirit. And it has 7 steps, and they are related to the 7 chakras in Eastern Indian philosophy. And each one of these chakras is related to your creativity and developing faith in your creativity, starting with the problem or the challenge. Using your being free of judging and just saying my intent is. And that chakra is related to the color red and to the creation and reproduction. And that chakra is in basically the part of your body that hits the seat, the base of your tailbone and pubic area. That is where the red chakra, the energy there comes, in sensing the energy of suspending judgment. So the second one is to affirm your intuition. And this sounds like my conscious mind already knows the solution. So taking that idea of prior knowledge and matching it with something new, a new intuition. And this is related to the orange or gut chakra and instinct. So, when you say, I have a gut feeling about something, then you're sensing the energy of intuition. Will is the next one. And this is yellow, solar plexus, associated with the mind. It's in the center of the body. And it's saying that I have a solid will and resolve to resolve the problem or the challenge. The next one is joy, the heart region, which is green. Within me is the capacity for joy. Let the joy flow and carry me through the creative process. I experience the flow of joy. The next one is courage. We all know it takes courage to be a creator. Affirm your courage. The courage is within me to do anything necessary to resolve the problem. And the blue chakra is in the throat. I speak. So we express our courage through speaking out. Okay. Number 6 is compassion. Affirming your compassion. I affirm my capacity for compassion. It allows me to forgive mistakes in myself and others. And this is indigo chakra, the eyes. So I see compassion and I see it in others. And then the last one is finally surrendering the problem to the resources you have just affirmed. So this is the violet chakra, the one that is the spirit in the forehead and symbolizes uniting or yoking together the source of creativity and the resources given. And the original Indian word for yoga meant yoke. You were yoking together body and mind. So this is kind of, real brief, and I didn't want to go through the Indian names for the chakras because they're hard to pronounce. Anyway, I just leave you with one final thought from Ray Parati. And he said, "We know we are stardust." And that sort of sums it up for me. So I like to do this little meditation, maybe once a month or so, just to affirm my creativity.
Wow. Thank you, Laurel. That was incredible. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay.
We have just a couple of more quick slides we'll go through, and then we have questions. And Laurel, everyone really wants a list of your books that you presented. So I'm hoping that we can get that out via email.
Yeah. Yes, I will send you the, I'll just send you the PDF.
Thank you. So Claire, we're going to go with you, and Bonnie, do you have Claire's slideshow?
I'm just putting those up.
Okay. Well, I just have been blown away with this presentation. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I hope I didn't go too long.
No, you're perfect.
Yeah. Okay, Claire, go ahead and jump on in. I've got your slides up and
Okay, oh, there we go. Okay. This was my favorite thing I've ever done tapestry wise. I would, of course, I was at Penny Studio, and for years I saw it abandoned there in a pile of tapestries in that main room. And I kept bugging Penny, and finally she let me take this one home and finish it. And it was supposed to be the original weaver, the bottom section. Her vision was, according to Penny, was flowers. And she left the state and just left this piece. And so I took it home, and as we were building our house, I have pictures of this outside while I was waiting to hand my husband lumber, up on the roof and stuff. I would sit there and weave on this. And my vision was, a southwestern sunset. And I think I achieved it. I mean, in my mind, it looks like a southwestern sunset to me. And so that's what it was. And I just used whatever was at the studio. I can't tell you. There was just a mix of yarns. Some of it's wool, some of it's synthetic, some of it's silk. It's just a big mishmash. And there it is. So that's, yeah. This is my, I have an older shacked, tapestry loom, and I'm just playing. I'm just trying to work on techniques and this and that. And I got to talk to Mina the other night, and she kind of helped me on how to do a diamond shape there on the left. I kind of want to put a yellow diamond there, and and so I don't have a written, a cartoon of what I want to do. I'm just strictly playing on this and just trying different techniques. And So it's not going to be anything. It's just going to be for me, just to practice. And this is my second tapestry I ever wove, and I just get such a kick out of it. It's so bad, but it, you can see how it's cut in a long triangle as I went up. And so it makes me smile when I walk by because I've learned so much since this. But I had a blast doing it. I just had so much fun just playing, and so that's it. And I'm looking forward to getting I really want, in my future, I really want to get a smaller tapestry loom. And I'm going to take that Mina's course on building a pipe loom. And because my loom is just, my tapestry loom for what I want to do is a little too big. It's a little too much for me. So I would like to do smaller scale stuff. But anyway, I just love it. I'm not typically a tapestry weaver, but I'm getting there. I'm interested. So
Awesome.
thanks, guys.
Katie had a comment on that. Working off of someone else's started project reminds me of Exquisite Corpse.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to jump in. This is Bonnie. I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit on Jasmine's behalf. She hasn't been feeling 100% today, but she contributed to what we were going to talk about today. And I think her approach to design is really interesting to me, and I think it will be to others. So one of the pieces we're going to look at briefly is Birth Story, and it incorporates the handwritten birth stories of a dozen different women using their words on paper, actually incorporated as a material, kind of referring back to what Laurel said about being inspired by materials as being one of your sources of inspiration. It talks about experiences of joy or trauma and the process of not only birth, but also women's work, weaving, midwifery, parenthood. So it really is a collective wisdom of women. And I'll let you kind of, so this is the piece, and you can see the paper woven in there, and pieces coming out of the cloth and emerging from the cloth. It's just really a very fascinating piece that's done with a variety of different techniques, kind of moving off of a plain weave structure. And here's the piece on the loom where you can see, some of the challenges for the weaver in working with paper as a material and how to incorporate that onto a warp and how to bind it into place and highlight it. And I'm fascinated also by the color of the warp that she chose and how it complements the colors of the paper and the weft. And just another picture of the full piece. And again, just the pieces that come off of it, I think are just one of the really fascinating things to me about this work, which is very simple in terms of weave structure, but very evocative in terms of the subject matter and how it's expressed. Just some pictures of the handwritten accounts that were used to create the weft, and some of the hand spun yarns that were used in the warp and the weft both. So not a tapestry specifically in the sense of it being a discontinuous weft-faced structure, but expressive in very much the same way that a tapestry would be. So here's an exploration of Jasmine's into tapestry specifically. It's called Sea Change, and talking really about climate change and some of how that affects our world. And it's done using a hand spun gradient. And I'll just let everybody kind of look at that and absorb it for a moment. I love this piece. It's very simple, but very evocative. And yeah, you can just kind of dive into it, just really experience it. So I think that's a really just interesting piece to think about in terms of tapestry. And here it is on the limb. You can see Lori also referred to doing something on a very simple frame student loom. And this piece you can see from the sides of the loom was done in a very similar way. It's just on a very simple loom with the 4 pieces being woven as bands simultaneously. So I will stop there, but I wanted to make sure we got to take a look at Jasmine's work as well.
Thank you, Bonnie. Well, I need to go and think about all this in a dark corner someplace. This was fabulous. Thank you so much, Lori and Laurel and Claire and Jasmine. But thank you so much. And I hope you all have learned something and that you feel like you're ready to go out and design. And really, one of the things that you might take from Laurel's meditations is be patient with yourself. You know, just go out and do it and see what you come up with. So we have names, Bonnie?
We do. I have a drawing, and if we were all in a room together, I'd ask somebody else to draw to keep me honest. And before I draw, I just want to echo what Judy is saying in the chat and just expressing some gratitude to you, Mina, for pulling this all together and giving us a really great afternoon of inspiration. So thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, so here is the big drawing, and the winner is Laurel. You won the book. And the fork.
Yay!
You're muted.
That's great. That was a fabulous afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bonnie, I already have the book. So
do you want me to redraw?
yeah, either redraw or give me the other thing.
You can take the fork. How about that? The hook at fork, and we'll.
Well, no, just go ahead and redraw.
Okay, here we go.
I have so much stuff.
All right.
We've got a second lucky winner coming up. Buffy!
Oh, yay!
And I know Buffy needs this book because she borrowed my copy. Perfect.
Cool. So we can just bring that on Wednesday when we visit with you again with our new weavers. And hopefully we'll have some more.
Pass out with excitement there.
I think so.
Thank you, Laurel, also.
You're welcome.
So I think we'll be in touch with a list of books from Laurel, and also kind of a call for things you'd like to hear about, or things that you might like to talk about to the Alaska Tapestry Weavers group here. And this is such a good afternoon. Thank you all so much.
It really was. Thank you.
I hope you'll keep me on the list for
sorry, go ahead, Helen.
I hope you'll keep me on the list and send me that list of books and everything. I want to get back to a tapestry that I started in the 80s. It was a workshop, and it was I had taken a photograph when I was about 10 of my mother and the coffee pot and the milk jug and so forth. I tried to put my mother's face into the coffee pot, and then I ripped that out. I didn't like it, and I've never finished that. I still have all of the yarns tied to the loom and all that, and I'd love to finish that sometime and not include my mother's face, but just make it a nice coffee pot thing. But I couldn't remember how to weave, whether you weave right across and so somebody had something with it. Well, I guess it was Claire, I think, but she is weaving portions of from the warp. You just weave portions of it. So that's going to really help me. Thanks a lot.
And we did have a question, Laurel. What is the technique called that you used for your window covering with the birch trees?
That's just called transparency. There's a really good book by Dora Mae Keesby on transparency. I had taken one of her workshops one year at Complex Weavers, and yeah, I think it's just called Woven Transparency or something like that, but it's Keesby, Dora Mae.
Could you spell her last name, please?
I think it's Keesby.
Okay, thank you, Laurel.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions or anything?
I have a question for, oh my gosh. Who was just talking? I'm sorry, I forgot her name. And I know her.
Helen? Or
Helen.
Laura?
Yeah.
No, Helen. Helen, was the piece that was hanging in the studio that was a bird, was that a transparency that you did?
No, that was Theo Mormon.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, we
I
did.
have one, I forgot. Sue and Martin have got that picture on the wall of Mount McKinley was also a Theo Mormon technique. I should ask them for that back because I just loaned it to them.
Okay, thank you.
I think we took that workshop together, Helen.
Yeah, yeah. And I recently wove a stole using the Theo Mormon technique, a religious stole for Susan Mitchell, who became priested, and she loves it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I did. I did stoles and paraments.
Yep.
7 sets.
Laurel, this is off the subject, but I've got some pastel paper, a large thing with your name on it. Do you want?
What? Yeah, we'll have to talk about what it is. I mean,
Can
I just
bring
have
it
so
back
much.
to you?
Yeah, I just have so much paper right now. I'm thinking it might be better to donate to Jamie Smith or somebody at the university, or you know,
It's pastel.
yeah, or maybe West Valley High School. I don't really use pastel. I can use it for books, maybe, depending on the weight.
Right. Do you want to pop by? You can. Do you ever go for walks? Walk down the
Hardly.
road. I'm at the other end of Kiska.
Okay. Yeah, I know where you are. I don't go for walks much, but yeah, I could do that.
Laurel, you
stop
gotta
by
walk.
in your car.
Really, no, I know she's right around the block.
Stop by in your car and find out.
Okay.
Anything else, Bonnie?
Nope, one more question. I'll just announce this in case people aren't watching the chat. Judy asked what the status is of the Alaska Tapestry Weavers show that we are applying for at the Beer Gallery in Fairbanks. And I know we have Fairbanks and Juneau and Anchorage people on the phone today. The application goes in this week. Mina has done the lion's share of the work on that, and we're just adding the photos, and we'll get that submitted, and we'll let everybody know when we hear back. We have asked for the latest date possible, which would be November of 2023, just because weaving takes a little bit of time. We want to have as much time as possible to let all members have the opportunity to weave stuff that you're really thrilled with and proud to have on display. So we'll keep everybody posted on that.
That's exciting. That's a goal, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna leave now. My sister-in-law is trying to call me. So
All right. Thanks, Laurel, so much.
Thank you.
okay.
Thanks.